We're just getting the technology in place, Rachel. Right, okay.
Yep, no worries.
The time is 7:04 p.m. on Monday, December 16th, 2024. I'd like to call the Environmental Advisory Committee meeting to order. The land acknowledgement. The town of Aurora acknowledges that the Anishinaabe lands on which we live and work are the traditional and treaty territory of the Chippewas of Georgina Island, as well as many other nations whose presence here continues to this day. As the closest First Nation community to Aurora, we recognize the special relationship the Chippewas have with the lands and waters of this territory. They are the water protectors and environmental stewards of these lands. And as a municipality, we join them in these responsibilities. We further acknowledge that Aurora is part of the treaty lands of the Mississaugas and Chippewas, recognized through Treaty 13, as well as the Williams Treaties of 1923. A shared understanding of how the rich cultural heritage that has existed for centuries and how our collective past brought us to where we are today will help us walk together into a better future. Let it be. Okay, could I have an approval of the minutes as circulated by the clerk's office? And you're gonna have to watch. Thank you, Ken. Wasn't that just the agenda? Okay, gonna do it again. May I have a motion to approve the agenda as circulated by the legislative services? Just raise your hands again. Thank you. Declarations of pecuniary interest. Seeing none. Receipt of minutes from October 21st. Would anybody like to make a motion to receive that? Thanks, Rachel. Ken, thank you, Ken. I didn't do all those in favor. That's what you meant. All those in favor? And all those in favor of receiving the agenda? Thank you. We have no delegations and we have one important matter for consideration. Memorandum from the program manager, energy and environment, read the energy and environmental progress report, which was interesting. But I don't do it now. Okay, I need a mover and a seconder so we can put that on the table. Rachel, Ken, thank you. Natalie, would you like the floor?
Yeah, and I have a presentation for today,
Great.
seeing that we have a lot of people in, and today is our last
Yeah.
meeting with this committee. So I do have a presentation.
I think this is great. It's been a great group so far, so I really appreciate
It has.
Yes,
Sorry,
and
I'm chiming in, but I feel like I wanted to be there, but I just couldn't. I just couldn't logistically make it happen today. So thank
Well,
you,
it's good to
Mr.
see
Gardner,
you
for
there.
yeah.
And you're on the big screen, Rachel.
Yeah, so you feel very present in here right
Yes, you
now.
feel very present. Okay, now.
Okay, so let me get the technology going. First, I share it. Window, there we go.
This is his name.
Okay, now. How come it's not going as a presentation?
I need to sit close.
Oh, I'm sharing the window. And just pick that. Oh, I see it. Okay. Okay, but then I don't see my notes. Okay, I'll wing it. I don't see my notes. It's okay. No, it's okay. It's good. It's fine. Okay. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for the introduction. I'm Natalie. I'd like to introduce you to Will Stover. He's our newest energy and climate change analyst. He started in November. So he will be, yeah.
Welcome.
Yes, he'll be coming to these committees. Not everyone here will be continuing, but he will be joining this committee in 2025 and participating in the meetings. So we're really happy to have him on board. He's been a great help already this past month. So yeah, I think going forward, we'll be presenting more often to this committee for different projects as they come and arise. All right. So the Energy and Environment Progress Report for 2023. This is an annual report that comes to this committee, the Environmental Advisory Committee. It then goes to council, and then it's shared on our website and on social media so that we're very open with, you know, what we're working on and how we're progressing. There is a 1-year reporting lag, as you can tell. We're nearing the end of 2024 and we have a 2023 progress report. That is because we need to wait until the following fall, to get a lot of our energy and emissions data that come from external partners. So we just received a lot of our community level mission data like less than a month ago. So yeah, so it's very like timely to get all of the data in and put it into this report. So, you know, going forward, we'll always be seeing this report by the end of the year at this committee. This is a multi-divisional effort, the progress that you'll be seeing in this report. That comes from our operational services team, our development planning team, and our community services communications as well. I forgot to put it on there. So big effort townwide, and every day I'm meeting more people that are working on these plans and strategic actions. So when we first, our first environmental plan was called the Corporate Environmental Action Plan. That was back in 2010. Since then, we have grown in terms of our environmental strategic plans. I won't list them, but they're all here. And they require accountability as well, and annual reporting. So this annual progress report has morphed a little bit over the years to now start reporting on all these other plans that we've developed over time. And they will continue growing. This list is up to 2023. As we know, 2024, we even had a couple of more strategic plans come out, like our active transportation master plan, our natural capital assets management plan, and also the urban forest study that came out. So it is an evolving reporting process at this point. So we have 5 main themes in our annual reporting: water conservation, waste reduction and diversion, natural capital assets and biodiversity, energy and greenhouse gas emissions, and climate resiliency. I won't be going over all these areas tonight. I'm going to go over the last 2 as they are Will and I's main responsibility here at the town. But you have the report. If you have questions, you know, we could still discuss them at the end. Yeah. So we'll start with climate resiliency. Oh, I had notes on that one. Hold on.
I'm sure you can pull it up on the side there somehow.
I don't know how. It's not giving me that option. Anyway, it's okay. I have my notes written here. So this is a new area that we're now reporting on, and it's, as I mentioned, an evolving area, so it will change over time. this has started in 2023. We started our infrastructure projects to have a climate consideration in the scope of work for our infrastructure projects. That's based on the recommendations from our climate change adaptation plan from the previous year, 2022. So yeah, we've created this new reporting area that, you know, every year we'll be, you know, giving an update. So, I'd like to just give a little update or kind of reminder that our climate projections for Aurora by 2050 are going to be a little bit different from what today is looking like. We're expected to experience warmer temperatures with average annual temperatures rising 2 to 3 degrees. This is leading to more frequent heat waves and more extreme weather events like increased wind events and intense rain events. The region will see increased precipitation and more intense rainfall and a higher risk of flooding. So there's a few strategies that the town is looking at. We are looking at climate resilient infrastructure, as I had mentioned. That's like upgrading stormwater systems, building flood defenses, and improving energy efficiency buildings. Climate resilient planning, like investing and expanding in green spaces and sustainable transportation, and even public health. So preparing for these heat waves and investing, doing public awareness on the town's cooling centers and investing in those locations, investing in renewable energy and energy storage. So a few projects from 2023 that started this considerations is the creek rehabilitation and flood control projects. They improve the natural flow within the creeks and improve flood mitigation. These were at Murray Drive, Willow Farm, Devlin Place, Jones Court. We had all of our our stormwater ponds inspected and maintained. Those are 64 ponds. That's a partnership with the LSRCA. And another project is a water main rehab at the Heathwood Heights Drive. And that project improved the life cycle of the asset, reducing probability of failure during extreme weather events, and improved reliability. And then I had already mentioned these climate considerations. We started including them in 2023. They're in our 2024 projects, and we're starting our 2025 planning process for our infrastructure. And we are continuing with this process of climate considerations, you know, during the planning, the design phase. Some examples of that type of consideration would be including resiliency measures into projects like stream bank improvements or invasive species mitigation within that project. So the next area is energy and greenhouse gas emissions. There's two levels to that. One is the community level, and also we have a corporate level. So we'll start with the community level. Oh, wait, before that. So the town set ambitious community emission reductions of 80% from 2018 by 2050. We have a medium-term target of 22% by 2030. So for the first time since we did our community energy plan, we actually have a value for our community emissions, which is the first year is 2023. That's because the Atmospheric Fund, which is a group here in Ontario, is doing the heavy loading for us for this emission analysis. It's a big endeavor to collect all the utility bills and signing data acquisition forms and things like that. It took us probably like 4 months of our time when we did it for our community energy plan. So we didn't envision that we would do it annually. It wasn't common practice to actually do an annual value. So we are super happy that they've taken that on our behalf. And now we have a value to say, okay, how are we trending and what does it look like on an annual basis? So our community emissions for 2023 is just over 300,000 tons of carbon dioxide equivalent, which is a 1% decrease from the previous year and puts us at about 4.81 tons carbon dioxide equivalent per capita, which is the lowest, one of the lowest, if not the lowest per capita value in the GTA, which is an interesting number. Now I will answer your question because you're probably going to ask it later. How are we trending from our 2018 value? Because that's where our target is. And unfortunately, their methodology is just slightly different than our methodology from our original plan. So we are working with them this year to align the two methodologies so that we can have an annual value that we can track and then show progress from our baseline. So right now I can't tell you how that compares to our 2018 value, but we are working on it, and it's something that obviously we would want to do going forward. For 2023, our largest emission contributions came from natural gas at 46% and our transportation fuel at 40%. Thank you, TAF, again, because they also tracked our electric vehicle and hybrid purchases year over year. So we had double the amount of purchases in 2022 compared to 2022. But it's still sitting at around 3% of our total registered vehicles in Aurora. So still a small contribution, though seems to be growing. So what's the town doing? Well, we have our town-owned public chargers. They provided about 18 megawatt of electricity in 2023. That's a 33% increase from the previous year. And our 2024 is increasing a lot more than that. But we won't share that till next year. The town hosted its second EV showcase, which is a public awareness event that we hosted, had test driving and other vendors and things like that. And we also have our annual anti-idling campaign that happens every fall at mostly at the school zones to reduce idling. 2023 town staff applied and received the Green Municipal Fund Community Efficiency Financing Grant. This project, which is now has just started this month, is going to be reviewing the feasibility of a home energy retrofit loan program here for the residents of Aurora. And that project will be coming to the committee, not this group, but when that new group starts in the new year, to present the project and for feedback towards it.
How much money did we get?
191,000 for the project.
For residential.
Oh, no, well, that's just for the feasibility study. Yeah, we got the grant for the feasibility. Now, this is following the Green Municipal Fund track for funding. So there is another funding opportunity if a program is to be developed and requires capital costs. There is another fund that we can apply for to help, like seed money essentially, right, to get the program going. Yeah, different elements of getting the program going. Exactly. Yeah. Then finally, we have the town's green development standard. 2023 was its first full year in implementation. The town received 20 new development applications for its first year. And hold on, I have. Yeah, and so the green development standard sets a minimum design requirements that improve environmental performance for new buildings and lands, such as EV and solar ready infrastructure, energy modeling requirements, on-site district energy assessments, as it relates to energy. There are some other features as well, but okay. All right. Now we're into the corporate energy level. So that includes our town-owned facilities, our town-owned fleet, and our water wastewater facilities. 2024, as you know, because we came to this committee, we have a new plan going forward starting in 2024 with new targets, new action items under that plan. We're still reporting on 2023 here, so just keep that in mind. So we had a corporate emissions target of 16% below 2018 by 2023. Those reductions, half of them came from, or were expected to come from facilities, and the other half from fleet. 2023 actuals saw a 16% increase in emissions from our baseline, which is hard to write down, but this is why we have this annual reporting, and it's there. Why were we off the target? There's two important reasons. One is that there were changes to the Ontario grid, electrical grid. The emission factor, so let's call that the carbon intensity of the grid, increased 200% from the previous year. That is because they are shutting down some of their emission-free nuclear power plants and turning on their natural gas plants to make up for it. So it is a temporary measure until those nuclear plants are refurbished and turned back online. But it is our reality for the next few years that this will continue to influence our emissions here at the town and also in the community. I think it's going to peak at 400% from 2018 values. So something, yeah, that everyone has their eyes on, I guess. And then another influence is we had major reconstruction at some of the town facilities. Aurora Town Square had its connections. It wasn't operational in 2023. However, all of the buildings were connected and the utilities connected, and thus the buildings were consuming energy and increasing our usage significantly. We also had a pandemic for a few years that really brought down our emissions and our energy use during that time. And 2023 really seemed to be the year where we're back to business as usual in terms of our programming, facility use. Yeah. Having said that, if we were to remove those two influences, meaning if we were to assume an emission factor that was similar to 2018, kind of giving it a level playing ground, let's say, and we excluded the facilities that did have this major reconstruction, our facilities did reduce their emissions by 5% compared to 2018. It didn't meet the target, but it also is still significant. And then emissions from our fleet are up 4% compared to 2018. I will note that in 2018, the data collection from our fleet was not very strong. And so we're looking more from a year-to-year basis, and and considering that their emissions went down 6% from the previous year. So there's still a lot of progress happening. It's just our 2018 baseline is a difficult year, I guess, to compare because it seems to be we've had a lot of changes since there, like external changes. So we have 640 megawatts of electricity that were generated through the town-owned solar systems, or rooftop solar, I should say. The town switched from a propane run to a fully electric ice resurfacer at the SARC. They're getting really great feedback from this switch, not just from an environmental perspective, but even from a maintenance and health and safety, for the workers driving these vehicles in an enclosed area. So there is a plan to slowly phase out of the propane resurfacers. Lots of facility retrofits, LED lighting, occupancy sensors, demand control, ventilation, HVAC upgrades, boiler replacements, etc. There was an LED sports light conversion study that was completed in 2023. That's for all of our sports fields and courts. So they actually will be doing the project starting 2025 and slowly replacing the sports lighting in the courts. And then to finish off, we thought we'd kind of dive a little deeper into the town-owned electric vehicle charger stations that we have. We currently have 8 duals. We're looking to install a couple of more at Aurora Town Square. Yeah, as I mentioned, usage is just increasing more and more, every year. Pretty much all of our locations are getting equal usage. 2023 had some issues at Aurora Family Leisure Complex. That's why it's quite low. They had to replace the charger there. There were some technical issues. But otherwise, Town Hall seems to be one of the locations getting a lot of usage. And then pretty equal between the operations center and our rec facilities. And the armory is actually getting quite a lot of usage as well. So yeah. Here's a breakdown. I know there's some in the group that like the numbers and the graphs. So we put this in there, but yeah, there's some real spikes. It's really interesting getting into the data. There was a big spike in March at the JOC, and Town Hall had some big jumps too, like in the spring of 2023. Yeah. So this is just the total electricity transfers that we had over the year per month. Okay, that's it. So if you have any questions or comments, I'd like to just finish off thanking everyone for their participation over this term. The comments and support have been really appreciated and valued on my end, as staff when we come with projects. And so thank you so much.
Thank you, Nan. Are there any questions? I see Ken's hand is going up. Ken?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the presentation. Just a couple of quick questions. I just wanted to know the influence of the LEED certification of the Op Center in terms of energy savings, and I think that facility was a LEED Silver, if I'm not mistaken, and if there were any appreciable reductions in energy consumption of that facility, and if there's any consideration of using LEED or a similar standard for retrofitting other buildings. And then I have one other question, but one by one.
Sure, through you, Madam Chair. Yes, we had actually LEED Gold for that facility, yes. So I'll answer your last question first. We are looking at a new building standard for our corporate buildings. As we know, the emissions will go up. If we build new, it could really be a LEED Platinum, and the emissions are going to go up, right? So we are looking at reviewing best practices and coming up with a new building standard to go to council with recommendations on how to move forward with any new corporate building or major reconstruction, because they do have a big impact on our emissions going forward. So yes, we are looking at it. We will be reviewing in more detail, let's say, the performance, avoided energy from at the JOC under using the LEED Gold standard. But the LEED standard is not a purely energy standard. It covers other environmental performance. So it performs better than a building code, for example, but it's not going to bring us to where we need to go with our emissions, essentially. So we will be reevaluating if we continue with that standard as our corporate building standard or something else. A lot of other municipalities are looking at net zero type building standards. York Region is currently collecting data from different municipalities to assess whatever building standard exists and how it's performing, and what they're going to do moving forward if they are going to also go to a net zero standard. They are looking actually at a standard called Passive House, which is something that I know that they're looking and evaluating. And I know it's very big on like public housing design. So I know that they're like assessing that for their public housing portfolio is the word I'm looking for. And in terms of the JOC, it is a higher performing facility. However, because it's a multi-use building, half is office and half is an operational center, it's hard to benchmark it with another building. So to say, okay, comparing it to another operational center, well, it depends what they have in terms of equipment and things like that. It's not a standardized benchmarking building type, which makes it difficult to do the kind of assessment that you were suggesting, to say like, well, how much have we saved because of it? It would be, I guess, a more complicated, we'd have to essentially do another building model of the same building and put kind of traditional building code level equipment and make that kind of assessment. It's possible. It's just it's a bigger activity than it sounds. But yeah. Great questions.
You had mentioned too about anti-idling outside of schools, and I'm wondering if there is a townwide bylaw, or maybe that's.
No, we've been trying for years.
Been trying, okay.
Great question. Councillor Gardner knows a lot about this area. She's been really pushing to have a bylaw. We have a policy. So a policy, I guess, is not enforceable, meaning bylaw cannot go and give someone a ticket. The policy that we have in place is an education-based policy. So if idling is found to be happening, the bylaw officer will go and educate the driver on, best practices. And yes, encourage not to do it. And then we do annual like education campaigns in the town. We like to focus at schools due to especially the health impact of the idling that happens near children is really like detrimental to them. So we really like to focus our idling or our campaigning at the school. So usually we do signage, like road signage. Our bylaw team is really helpful too. They'll go to different schools and coordinate where we have the signs with the bylaws to go. They have pamphlets that they share with the drivers. So yeah, and then we do a social media campaign that goes with it.
No words. Well, I do. So, for example, I think there's a lot of idling at school zones. And certainly the two on Henderson, that's my area. Light of Christ. And what is the second one? Rachel, can you help me out here? The Light of Christ and, oh, Highview. Highview. So, there's a lot of parents who pick up their kids and it's creating chaos and bylaws there often just because they're not supposed to be parking where they're parking. So to add the anti-idling component on it. But I think we should have a policy for school zones, like a bylaw for school zones. And it's very hard to enforce because by the time somebody reports somebody idling, they're gone. But I think it would be good in the school zones. Because then somebody can come and say, you can't be idling here. It really, I was thinking about it a lot because when it's so cold out, you can understand. And when it's so hot out, you can understand why they would want to do that. So I don't know if we could do, from April to September or something. I got a parking ticket because Toronto is very interesting. They'll say, can't hardly read it, but it'll say, you can't park here on such and such a day or for such and such a time. And they give you tickets. So what works better than taking money out of your pocket? And I think it's fair maybe we have to, well, in the summer, they're not going to be idling at the school anyway. But I think it's something we could work.
Well, we did choose the fall because, like you said, it's not super hot and it's not super cold. So if there is idling that's happening, you don't need to be idling in September, October, maybe even November, right? Depending on the year. So that is why we targeted it, because if you're in more extreme weathers, it's harder to.
Very hard.
There'll be a lot of pushback, but when it's, I don't know, 10 degrees outside or 12, do you really need to be idling for temperature comfort? Probably not. So
it's getting people in the frame of
Yeah.
mind that they shouldn't be idling.
yeah,
I think it's worth another go.
yeah.
Can I ask a question through you, Chair? Do other other cities in York Region have similar policies?
Well, there was a challenge between municipalities, like maybe 2003, maybe a little earlier than that, where two municipalities would challenge each other. And Aurora had the opportunity, I can't remember if it was Richmond Hill, we had the opportunity to participate and we chose not to. But there was a lot of press and a lot of excitement around it. So we kind of missed that vote. But I don't know how they're doing in the other. I'm sure Markham has one. I don't know.
Well, I was wondering, maybe from the school division or the school board could do presentation in the schools to the kids, and then the kids can kind of
Yeah.
pressure their parents to be because kids, right? They
Yes,
kind of
that's a
bring
great
mindfulness
idea.
And my, like, I don't know, from a different angle of,
And if
the kids to
school
pressure the parents.
board wouldn't do it, Natalie, maybe you have to get permission from the school board. Maybe they would allow us to do it,
To do the bylaw, you mean?
to do the presentation in.
Oh, yes, yeah,
just some awareness.
yeah,
A short presentation.
yeah.
And perhaps also working with the schools to send out notices like we don't.
I'm
get
sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
Notices to the parents by email. Sorry, I should have been raising my hand, but.
Paper. Yeah, but I think you're right. If we can get the kids, and of course, it's going to be their world. So they need to be thinking about these kind of things, eventually with electric vehicles.
Yeah, so we did actually have a student during the pandemic take our anti-idling campaign and create an education curriculum around it under their environmental education module. I don't know, I'm not a teacher. I forget
Yeah.
The names. So it's actually like well done, and I would say almost ready to be implemented. We've been a bit short on resources to implement it, but now we have Will on board, and we're discussing, picking up a lot of these
Great.
initiatives that might have been put aside due to restraints, that we can maybe look into that for the 2024 fall. Sorry, we're
the
2024,
school board would have to-
2025.
The school board would have to approve it.
Yeah, you think so?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, okay.
That's why I was wondering if it was other cities, then maybe at a larger scale, that could be.
Yeah, so Natalie, can you look into that
Yeah.
and send us all an email?
Yep.
Because I know that a lot of municipalities took up that challenge,
Yeah.
so.
And other municipalities have put together a bylaw. However, enforcing the bylaw is a big challenge in any municipality. And continues to be in any municipality. I think the counselor explained, once I think the officers have to witness themselves witness the idling for a certain amount of time, which is the challenge, right? So yeah, it is a challenge for other municipalities as well.
We're doing a pilot project with, I call them red light cameras at schools. So I'm guessing that those cameras would be running. Anyway, it bothers me because it's really a waste. It's just a waste.
Yeah.
And it's not healthy.
Through you, the chair. The other areas that I see is I'm a GO Train user. So at the GO Train station is another
Yeah.
place where there's a lot of pick up and drop off. I
Right.
see a lot of idling there. As well as like the complex sports places, people picking up their kids and so on. And can I ask another question? Going back to, you actually answered part of my question on the green building design and where you're going, but adding in there also resiliency in terms of flooding, maybe another good thing to think about as well.
That's a great point.
And if I can ask one more question.
You can ask as many questions as you like.
Great. You talked about the new green development and there was about 20 applications. I'm not sure that I fully understood what that was, because that seemed to be on the community side. What I was thinking is any new development, is there any pressure that the town can put on that? There's, if you're going to build, it has to be X, Y, Z as part of the new, whatever standard is for community building. And
So that's exactly what the green building standard is. So if there's a new application for for a land to get developed or built, they need to follow this green development standard. So at the moment, we have two tiers to it. We have tier 1, which is all applicants have to fulfill that minimum standard. So that was a lot of the readiness requirements. So having the infrastructure in place for EV charging stations, for example, having the infrastructure on the roofs so that they can house solar panels. And that type of technology, you need a certain load, like the load bearing infrastructure. We have some other requirements, like energy modeling to show that they are above a certain amount in terms of compared to the Ontario building standards. So we want to see something beyond in terms of energy efficiency. What's the other one? On-site assessing. Yes, so, oh, sorry, I've only focused on the energy piece, but there are other areas like stormwater management, natural heritage features. What are the other ones?
Like
Water conservation,
soil, waste,
waste, exactly. So,
bus stop.
The problem with that was that on tier 1, there was a list of things. And I think they had to pick 2 in each category.
so tier 1 is mandatory everything. Tier 2 is then a list of maybe 5 or 6
Okay,
that they choose from.
okay, it was a very long and involved report. Were you here for it, Natalie?
I was a stakeholder in the group, but it was a planning,
Yes, it was
planning
came out of
project.
planning,
Yes,
not
yes, I was
not
involved.
environmental.
And
And actually, the person who did it
ecology.
was very good, and he's gone from planning to parks and roads. So he's in a different department, and I think he'll continue. He was very interested in green energy. He will continue that.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
you're right, it was a planning exercise because
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so sorry, there's energy, water, ecology, building waste materials, and complete cities. So that's a lot of like planning for transportation, public transportation, and things like that. Yeah, so it does capture what you're describing in terms of new development.
Will, could you send that to me instead of me trying to figure out where it was?
Sure.
Is anybody interested?
Yeah, I'd be interested.
Yeah, you may as well send it to the committee. It was a good attempt, let's put it that way. I think we can't make developers really do anything. We can say this, am I right on that? Rachel? We can say, this is what we want. But to make it mandatory, would either have to go under the building code or.
Well, essentially, we defer to the building code, although our green development design standards are not enforceable. So we do have certain tiers. So I believe there's tier 1, 2, 3, and 4. And within those tiers, they can accommodate a certain level of green development design standards, but they're not mandatory. I think the only mandatory ones that we ask for are in tier 1 that are probably already within the code. And then beyond that, it's things that we ask for over and above. So obviously, when we are asking for new development, the planning department encourages developer to exceed within these tiers. I don't know if Ms. Keel, you would like to elaborate, but that's how my interpretation of it.
To say it's enforceable, I think,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's,
Not enforceable.
they should, so that we can process their applications.
Faster.
Exactly. There are other benefits for them to meet the requirements, right? It's adding to the process when they don't, and it has to go back and forth, right? And I know the town is
I was
looking.
going to stop you and just say, I'm just going to defer to the Ontario Building Code. So that really is the barrier. At the end of the day, developers only really need to adhere to the Ontario.
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
That's what it comes down to. The fact that we have our green development design standards is a guiding document that we encourage developers to utilize as incentives. And we as a town will give back incentives for them complying to that in various different levels. Although I think in the very first tier, I think there are some things there that have changed with the building code. 'Cause I know that was in transition over the last few years while our GDS study was being developed. That may already encompass some of those enforceable things. I just can't pinpoint what they are, but they're very minute. But the fact that we have them, we can point to it and we can ask developers to actually incorporate some of these GDS, I think is a good thing because some municipalities don't have that at all. I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you. And one of the things that we can do or supposed to be able to do is when, but council no longer has control of the site plan. It's sent to staff, like the council used to have to approve of the site plan, and in the site plan are trees. And the more trees they plant, the better. I mean, that if that was just the only thing that we could make developers do, that would help with flooding, with heat island. I mean, it would help with so many things, air quality. I think that our planting staff say what they have to do. But if you look over at the new plaza next to the 404, where we've got the Winners, the HomeSense, if you look at the plantings that they've done there, it's really pathetic. And the storage, and anyway, staff knows. We actually have very good staff. They know, and I think that they're going to try and encourage some more planting. They were able to do that. Rachel.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think that we passed not too long ago some elevated standards to developers for the amount of soil and tree planting within certain areas.
Yes.
We beefed up that landscaping, and at that time, that development, it wasn't part of that change.
No.
I agree with you in that respect, but I believe we have made some changes to our minimum standards on that. So we can and beef that up.
And what that means practically is if you have to give a certain amount of space for a tree, you have to, dig deep enough and put in soil. Like developers were just kind of plopping things in. So we thank you for raising that. We have improved our planting standards so that hopefully the trees will have a better chance of survival. But it's really the number of trees as well. And trees are so cheap. So I don't know, but that all comes out of the building department. Yes, go ahead.
Madam Chair, I just had a question through you to Ms. Keel. You had mentioned the atmospheric fund and some grants that we had occurred, and I'm really excited about that because I feel that that's actually putting a lot of strides forward in the retrofitting program. Because from what I recall from the conservation demand energy plan, one of the biggest barriers was that buy-in and helping and assisting for that retrofit program. And so I'm just a little curious as to how this grant is going to help with the incentive and what are the plans moving forward. And I know this could be a very preliminary question, and maybe we're just starting it, so we're not quite sure yet, because we have just approved updating our corporate energy plan, and maybe that's part of that. But I thought maybe I would just kind of give you the floor a little bit to kind of help us understand what that next step looks like.
Thank you.
Through
Natalie?
you, Madam Chair. Great question. So the Green Municipal Fund grant that I mentioned in the presentation is to support the feasibility of a home energy retrofit loan program. So specifically to our residents, this is a program for our residents, not our corporate buildings. However, it's the same group that does fund a lot of retrofit types of programs. As the counselor mentioned, the Energy Conservation Demand Management Plan that did come here in the spring, I believe, early summer, identified the need for these deep retrofits at our corporate facilities. As you saw, some of the numbers are, something we need to invest in something more aggressively. And they do fund that kind of feasibility, like technical feasibility that we can investigate for some of our corporate facilities, probably focusing on our rec facilities as they are the major energy consumers in our portfolio, and have similar energy systems in them.
Residents.
Will is gonna
On
be,
the resident side.
pardon?
On the resident side, so we have the corporate side. I'm sorry to interrupt through, Madam Chair. So on the resident side, I understand the corporate energy.
Oh, sorry. So you want more information on the
What does it mean?
resident? Oh, sure. Yeah.
For our residents for this granting, because that is really the big buy-in, and that's really been a barrier that we've identified in the last energy plan, was the fact that it's going to cost money and it's going to come from somewhere. And so that type of incentive or that kind of granting or support on a financial way to incentivize people to make those changes has to come from somewhere. So that's what I think I want to hear.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, I misunderstood. So the home energy retrofit, yeah. There are a lot of studies showing the barriers to homeowners to doing any kind of deep energy retrofit at their homes. That could be anything from education, like not understanding what they can be doing, like capacity building, or it could be access to the money to do these deep retrofits. As you know, these kinds of projects in your home tend to be quite expensive. So it's there's so a big piece of this feasibility study that we're going to be doing at the beginning is really understanding what in Aurora, what kind of barriers exist for homeowners for this kind of project, and also to see if there's targeted communities in Aurora that are perhaps not able to access this type of retrofitting in their homes. So we will be assessing all of that at the local level, specifically to Aurora, and presented to the committee once we have that information. And then a program will kind of be built around that to remove the barriers, or at least lessen the barriers for implementation to encourage it. There are, because we're specifically assessing a loan program, we're going to be looking at the financial models available to Aurora to implement a loan program to really remove one of the largest barriers to this type of implementation, or this type of retrofit, is access to funds to implement it. So we will be looking and assessing the types of financial models that are available for this type of program, and what will make the most sense here for the town as the program owners, or at least partners in the program, but also what's attractive for the residents in terms of a program.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. So just a quick follow-up, and you're talking about creating a plan in order to allow the residents to have an opportunity to access funds. So I'm just curious, and again, this could be very preliminary. Is this an action that's going to be taken through the new corporate demand energy plan, or is this a separate report that's going to come to council?
Through you, Madam Chair. It's going to be its own plan.
Okay.
Its own feasibility study, yeah. And there's two parts to this project. We have like a phase one where we assess I guess the local context of Aurora, the potential for savings, addressing what the barriers are here, finding target audiences or target residents, looking at all of those financial models, and then coming up with the best option for Aurora from that process. And then that will go to it will be brought to this committee for feedback, and then also to council. And then if that is endorsed, then we would go to phase 2, which would be developing that program. And then we would have a much more detailed understanding of what the program will cost, the risk liabilities, the opportunities, and all the details that will come out of that second phase. And from there, we could then go back to Green Municipal Fund for another grant for the actual implementation phase. So yeah, it is it's a process. These are trends.
Are we receiving for the first part of that?
Pardon?
The first part of, how much are we receiving?
I mean, the whole project is 190,000 for the whole project.
So I'd like to suggest that everybody look at Passive House. Chris Ballard is working for Passive House, and they have an office in Aurora, I think, or if not in Aurora, Richmond Hill. So it is an international organization, almost literally called different things in Europe. But if you look at that, and I have to disagree with you, because I think their Passive House is targeting individual homes. And I do know somebody who built one of those homes. And it's basically based on, or the two things you can do, retrofit or original, is insulation and better windows. And if you can get those two things done, the energy savings is huge. I think with Passive House, if you do it from scratch, and it doesn't cost that much more, it used to be $7,000. I don't know what it is now. Your energy bill is like a couple $100 a year. So it's a very, very interesting model. It's very different than what we've been using, but it's very practical because it's relatively easy and inexpensive to do insulation and windows. So, but I recommend it's an easy read, and it's a good read, and it's shocking how much energy they save. And I think they want to do it in what you were talking about, like lower income housing, high-rise housing, but it's and the retrofit, it's not so easy as with homes. But can you, for example, if we're going to have multi-unit dwellings, could you try and expand the eligibility criteria, like for, low-rise buildings, maybe 5 stories or 6 stories, and also, row houses kind of thing,
And the requirement for Passive House, is that what you're?
No, I'm talking about when you do the study.
Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, to
Because we're
extend.
talking about.
Oh,
we're
okay,
talking
sorry.
about standalone
Yeah.
residential,
Mhm.
really, as far as I know. But if we want to really encourage more affordable housing, and everybody is tight with money these days, but I would suggest it would be the lower income housing that
Mhm.
could really take advantage of this.
So, just a comment, the reason why, public entities that usually, build, low-income housing, or public housing is it's, great opportunity because they design, build,
Yeah.
and run and own the building for the life of the asset of the building. And so they know that what investment they put in at the start, they will
Will-
benefit from the lower energy costs. Either they're paying for it or their residents that are living in their facilities are benefiting from it. So they know they will reap the benefits of the higher efficiency design.
It's an easy sell.
It's an easy sell, and that's why passive house is very popular for this type of housing. Now, the problem arises when it changes hands. So the people who are designing and building and then sell it off to the next homeowner, the designers do not reap the benefits of the high efficiency design with lower energy costs. They are not the beneficiaries. They are the ones who have to put the added cost to their design, which makes it a harder sell because they're paying the higher upfront cost, but not benefiting with the lower energy costs. So that's why it's not as common as you would think, unless you are the homeowner who designs your own home,
Yeah.
you know that you're gonna benefit from that investment.
And those are the only situations I know where people are building a home.
Yeah,
And I'm sorry, did you
I'm
have?
just gonna say, sorry, that I think it also, passive, like we were talking about passive house as a standard, for, individual residential homes, but I think it's also, certain size office buildings as well.
And yeah, anything.
Yeah.
But we're looking. Well, I'm just saying that if we're gonna get money to do an investigation and we're retrofitting, that if the two most, I tried to get it in the green standards, it's there somewhere. The two most cost-effective things are good windows and insulation and white roofs or light color roofs. Because they they're good in the winter and they're good in the summer, that color. The dark roofs are not good in the summer because they absorb the heat.
right.
Anyway, there's some relatively easy things. But we don't have, would it work with the rental apartment buildings that we have? How
Um,
few?
You mean in the study? Apartment buildings, I have to see exactly how, I don't think they're part of the study.
No, it's just the homes.
It will be more the homes, yeah. Yeah,
Yes.
Through the chair, I have less questions, but more comments and feedback on the presentation.
great.
I wanted to say through the chair that I thought, so I really appreciate the data. I really appreciate the progress report. And whenever I think of progress report, I'm always thinking, oh, are we on track, right? Or not? And I love that you've acknowledged the time lapse or the time lag because of the data. But I feel like that there's still the opportunity to, when I look at data, I think it's time, could be used to say where we are right now. And one of the powers of data is to kind of forecast where we might be in the future. And I feel like there's the opportunity to kind of push that envelope a bit more with timely data because we have the list of things that we've done in 2024, right? I think that the presentation, at least for me, really accomplished what you guys wanted because I was really excited. And it's like, I want to read the next chapter. What's happening in 2024 and are we on track? And I'm wondering if you might consider for the next time, because I know that this is kind of like the first year of data, whether there's an opportunity to include multi-year data trending to kind of say, are we on track or not? And the idea of, yep, we might have data for 2023. Here are the activities that we've done in 2024. And because of that, we expect to be on track or behind or ahead or whatever that forecasting is. And I feel like that's a piece that if I could see it next time around, I feel like, oh, that would really satisfy like my thoughts of, oh, are we on track? Do we need to push harder? Should we be patting ourselves on the back? Like those types of things, because I feel like this is a marathon, not a race. And as much as we were disappointed to see some increases over 2018, I feel like, well, those are explainable. We had infrastructure renovations, no worries. Like I'd be more concerned if we had that same increase next year without the renovations, right? And just trying to get a better idea of that as we try to figure out how do we move forward and what we might need to do in the future. And that is my
Thank
comment
you.
through the chair. Thank you.
And maybe also the population growth as a fitting into that. Yes.
Through you, Madam Chair. I guess to Dennis's point as well, one thing that I was thinking of, and I know you sort of narrowed in your presentation in terms of some of the thematic areas, but one of the things that came to mind, and perhaps this is part of one of your other reports, because I know you've got quite a few, is how it relates to Scope 3 emissions. And I know that there's a lot of emphasis on how are we going to be reporting in the future on Scope 3 emissions, just overall as a not the right words here, but how are we demonstrating on our Scope 3 emissions?
Through you, Madam Chair. So scope 3 emissions, yes. So we are just starting to track waste data from our corporate facilities. 2024, our 2024 plan was the first year we tracked waste generation from our town-owned facilities, so our facilities, parks, rec centers. I'm missing one. It's the third one.
Dog waste.
Yes, dog waste, perfect. So we are tracking it, and actually 2025, we have a project to actually do a waste audit. What we did in 2024 were estimations based on frequency of pickup and size of bins and things like that, and kind of estimations on composition. So we have this project to actually dive deeper and have real numbers, because we've never done one before from our town facilities. So it's going to be a wealth of information where we can then say, okay, well, now that we have all the information, how do we go forward? What does the next 20 years look like in terms of dealing with this waste, from town parks and all these other facilities? Corporately, another piece that was identified in our 2024 plan from Scope 3 is staff emissions with their vehicles, transportation emissions from staff.
And maybe working at home, how that.
Yes, exactly. Evaluating that would definitely have an important impact for sure, like a hybrid work policy. So that was also flagged to start tracking that information. Finally, another piece that we haven't assessed at all at this point, and is maybe a 2025 or 2026 report to council, will be our embodied carbon emissions, which is when we have, let's say, a new facility that we're building. We have our emissions from operating this building, but there are emissions to build it, from the materials that are used in the building, moving that material from one location to the site, all the vehicles and resources required for the building process. And that is essentially embodied carbon that has not been assessed by the town at this point. It's definitely on our radar. We're trying to tackle at this point, a priority is our operational emissions. So all the energy that's being used at our facilities and our fleet, But yes, we have flagged it, but we haven't started that assessment. It's a growing area. That might be part of the building standard when we start assessing, best practices. And we did actually, under the waste section, don't we have embodied carbon calculation in the green development standard? Sorry, go back to energy. I thought it was in energy. Oh, that's the tier one. Okay, then it was a tier two. I believe it's in our green development standard for new development. Not our corporate facilities, but in the green development standard. I think it's in the tier two level. That's recycled material, yeah. No, I think it's in the tier two then. Oh, this is tier two. No, that's tier one.
Natalie, I'm going to
Yeah,
interrupt.
sorry.
Because we really, as Rachel knows, we're pretty much built out. We don't have any land to do any more large buildings, like we're doing a gym at the Sark. And of course, the town square. I don't know where we would put anything else like that. I mean, it's a fantastic idea. What I'd like to ask you, and I don't know if it's possible, but I was listening to CBC Radio and one of the, oh, sorry, Rachel, I didn't see your hand up. Do you want to go first? Go ahead.
Well, it wasn't related to what we're talking about, so I'll wait till you make your point.
Okay. We recycle X amount, but in fact, there is not sufficient infrastructure to recycle everything that we don't put into landfill per se. So it would be interesting to try and find out, the recycling is growing, but what percentage of that actually gets recycled? I mean, we need there's so much we need and not enough money, but the region or the province needs some recycling facilities for things like plastics.
I work at York University and we have one of our colleagues, he does research on waste and he does a lot of metrics around municipal
Oh.
waste. So I can certainly put you in contact with him.
That would be
He's got
great.
some great
Yeah.
data
Mhm.
that you may find fascinating. His name is Calvin Leckham and he's out of our Faculty of Environmental and Urban Change.
So could you send Natalie
Yeah.
phone and email?
Yeah.
Rachel, what did you want to add?
Thanks, appreciate that, Madam Chair. I was really just wanting to just really highlight and thank Natalie and staff for this report.
Yeah.
And the fact that we're developing a baseline. We didn't really have a baseline prior to this. So I think, moving forward from now, although we're looking at some of the numbers and we've had some increases and decreases, they're there for various reasons. The fleet in general, obviously, we've also grown as well. So I don't know if we've taken that in consideration, but I do feel that the numbers that have been presented, regardless of some of the increases, I think that we're on a pretty good track. And the fact that we had decreases is pretty impressive, if you ask me. And I really am looking forward to the next conservation demand plan moving forward so we can track this data, especially as I believe Dennis was speaking to about having that data moving forward. And as we continue on with this group and this department and develop this baseline, we'll have a better understanding where our actual actions are and our output and what those KPIs are, I guess, for lack of a better term. So I'm excited about this moving forward. I really do appreciate this update. It helps us really fully understand, all the great things that we've been trying to do and trying to achieve. So I just wanted to say thank you so much.
Rachel, thank you so much for adding that. Because in fact, our corporate energy plan before you, we we didn't have anybody assigned to track any of this stuff or to take it on. There were no departments. So the work you've done, as Rachel said, is it's really put us literally on track.
And
Thank
we-
you. And now you have Will. Yeah.
If I could say, yeah,
Yes.
we increased our staff, so we had no staff to some staff to now we've increased it again. So I think obviously it merits having good people like you to be able to do this good work. So thank you. I appreciate it. And thank everybody on this committee for being as
Yes,
engaged.
thank you.
I really do appreciate that. Everybody around the table, staff, I know Councillor Gardner and I maybe I'm speaking a little too soon because I feel this is the last advisory committee. It's going to end. I'm not going to be on this committee anymore, unfortunately. And I've been on this committee for a very long time. But I am really grateful for all the engagement all of you have had. It really does mean a lot. And we really appreciate the insight. And you guys have some great expertise yourselves. And I think it's really good that we hear that feedback from you. So thanks.
Thank you. Everybody, you were instrumental in this committee. Yeah, we didn't have a committee for a long time. Rachel noticed that. Okay. And Rachel, everybody, we had an environmental person, but we didn't, there was no expertise in climate change. So that's what I know, you've worked in that field before you came here. So thank you. So glad to have you. Yes, well, it's certainly the last meeting of 2024. And Rachel and I will not be on this committee because the mayor wants to move us around to different committees. And so you will be having Councillor Weiss. And I think you just have one counselor.
Yes.
You have Natalie and Will. Okay. Oh, here, I have a script here. I think we've already moved it. I think I just have to have a vote. Linda. All those in favor of, I guess we've just received.
Yeah, and the comments to be referred
And
to.
the comments are going to be referred
staff.
to.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there will be a report also to council. All those in favor? Carries unanimously. Is there any new business? Anybody have any new business? So, Rachel, I'm going to speak on your behalf. We wish everybody happy holiday, no matter what holiday you celebrate, and it should be fun and peaceful and healthy. So, a motion to adjourn.
Right, we adjourn.
sorry.
To thank both of the councilors for, on behalf of the citizen members. Thank you so much for your guidance, and Natalie, and welcome as well, and to my
Thank you.
to my colleagues on the committee. But thank you for leading us through, and wish you best in I guess as you turn
Yeah, I'm trying
on
to
to other
think.
committees.
New committee.
I don't know what you're on. I'm on active transportation. I'm on, not active transportation, traffic and new development. They're calling it, I think I'm on accessibility and heritage. Which are all interesting committees, but this is my favorite. Thank you, Rachel, for sharing this committee with me.
I've loved working with you, and I've loved working obviously with all the members of this committee and staff. Thank you so much again for your engagement. I really do appreciate it, and so does the community.
Whether they know it or not. Okay, a motion to adjourn. Okay, thank you. Oh, how about we do Rachel?
Yeah.
Because you can, yeah, you can do, is that okay with you? Thank you,
What, a
'cause-
motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. So,
And Ken. Thank you. All those in favor? Yeah, the chair can't move motions. Okay, and we're going to recycle this paper, Linda.